Welcome everyone to Embracing Radical Change. I am your host, Jocelyn Mercado, and in this event, you are invited to join with us in global conversations with 27 cutting-edge experts and thought leaders who will guide you to connect with the truth in your heart, to unlearn the illusions of our modern world, and to activate bold new perspectives about the future of humanity. So today, I am very excited to welcome Gina Sager to the event. Thank you so much, Gina, for being a part of Embracing Radical Change.
It's really an honor and a pleasure to be with you, Jocelyn. Thank you for asking me.
Yes, so wonderful to have you here. So let me introduce you to everyone. Gina is a medical doctor, and she practiced general surgery for 11 years. She describes herself during her medical career as way more versed in burnout than in rest. Learning to stop for her has been a process that has been challenging yet essential. Gina completed her 200-hour yoga teacher training in integrative yoga therapy and yoga nidra in 2005. She learned much of what she knows about yoga nidra from Swami Karma Karuna of Anahata Yoga Retreat Center in New Zealand. She has also trained with John Kabat-Zinn on mindfulness-based stress reduction, which she has been teaching since 2004. Gina has melded what she learned about yoga nidra with shamanic journeying and energy work to help her clients break out of survival mode and remember the profound restorative and healing powers of their own body, mind, and spirit. Since leaving her surgical practice in 2002, Gina has dedicated herself to healing herself and others using multiple healing modalities, including yoga, yoga nidra, mindfulness-based stress reduction, Aaden energy medicine, Ayurveda, and seasonal cooking. So I love your topic for today, Gina. It is called Self-Empowering Medicine, Break Free from Survival Mode and Catalyze Deep Healing. So I would love to begin by asking you to share how you went on this journey from being a medical doctor to doing this beautiful work that you're doing now, you know, based more on energetic, but combining that with science in amazing ways.
Yes, thank you for asking that. That's always an interesting place to start because I think the story is still being written. But I think the short answer to your question is that I burned out. I really did burn out as a general surgeon, and I had absolutely no idea that it was critical when I was practicing medicine to take care of myself. I realized that, you know, in my family of origin and in my training, there was no focus whatsoever in self-care. And so I was putting out more and more and more energy and not ever being repleted. Mm-hmm. So I think that looking back now, what I realized is that I trained myself to live very skillfully in chronic survival mode. I've recently seen a really appealing definition of this, that survival is a state of highly well-armored helplessness. And it was sort of like that, you know, it was like everything was zipped in tight, everything happened, I was fully functional. But my background feeling and an awareness that I didn't know how to tap into was that I was frozen. And so that was with me really all through my practice, even though it was a wonderful practice and it was a very successful practice. There was this background thing that something's absent, something's missing, and I didn't really know what it was. So I just because I sort of reached my limit, I decided to leave my practice. And naively, I believed that stopping this critical care, stopping this crazy schedule was going to immediately and magically bring me to a place of greater balance and ease. And so I was completely horrified to see that actually what happened is I realized what a terrible state I was in for the first time. You know, I had learned to live comfortably with chronic pain. I had learned to not ask questions about my headaches and my fatigue. I just figured this is the price of doing business. Mm-hmm. So once I quit though, I didn't really have a good excuse. I took 2 years off to not do anything. And I'm like, why am I exhausted? Why does it hurt for me to lift pans out of my cabinets? Why can't I turn my head to back of my car? Why does my head hurt? So because I'm a scientist, I started looking for answers, you know, scientific answers. I tried to figure things out. And I remember doing a program with a colleague, a physician colleague, who had suffered from leukemia. And she was telling her story And she said something that really struck me. And she said, I spent years trying to talk myself out of the fact that I have post-traumatic stress disorder. And that just landed for me. And then all of a sudden I thought, what if I'm missing something? I mean, I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating the right food. I'm doing my yoga. I'm doing my meditation. But it feels like I'm living behind plexiglass in my world. Mm-hmm. How can I be more open and alive? And so I started, as I do always, to do research. And I started researching trauma, thinking surely I'm too smart for this, to have slipped under my radar. But when I started to really look into the work of trauma physiology, I realized that it perfectly explained the state that I was feeling. A trauma and any unresolved emotion, experience, grief, loss, generally gets stored in the body. It gets stored in cellular memory. And the challenge is that we don't have cognitive access to that. And so we try to think ourselves out of pain. We try to think ourselves out of angst. And you can't do that because your body is actually speaking your mind. So I was saying things sort of like that in my mindfulness training, but I was realizing, you know what, I'm saying things that I haven't really personally connected with. And I wanted to deepen that work for my practices and teaching to be more authentic. So when I started to really come more into an awareness of my body, stop fighting with the pain and try to understand the pain, like why would my head be hurting? What has happened lately that might be contributing to this? Mm-hmm. It was really like learning a new language. And I remember hearing Rachel Naomi Remen say one time that you can't trade mystery for mastery. And I realized that was sort of what I had been doing all along. I had an intellectual understanding of meditation. I had an intellectual understanding of stress physiology. I had an intellectual understanding of pain. But the felt sense of it was not really in sync with what I was understanding. And so I had to really teach myself a new language. And it's changed everything, frankly. I mean, I think that the curious thing is that the word meditation and medicine come from the same Indo-European root. And it's all about restoring or perceiving right inward measure. And so for me, all of this stuff is medicine. And as you learn to tap into the wisdom of your body, you are more skillfully integrating body, mind, and spirit, and you have the information and language that you need to receive synchronicities, to receive guidance. I didn't understand why I was drawn to meditation, but I'm tempted to believe it's because it is the same thing as medicine. Maybe I just made an interesting twist in my career choice and accidentally chose the Western medical path when I really meant, to choose something a little more esoteric.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And we have on this event a couple of other medical doctors who have, then moved over to doing more, different types of energetic healing work. And so, or shamanic work too. So it's really fascinating that what you say, that all of these are medicine, and maybe our modern, medical system is just seeing only a very limited part of what's actually available to us.
So I have this beautiful little tree that someone made for me, and I use it as an example because what Western medicine is said to do in the more ancient wisdom traditions is you've got this beautiful tree, and Western medicine works out here at the edges, pruning the tree. It may well keep the difficulty under wraps, but it doesn't really fix the problem. And more Eastern modalities really go down here and go, look what the beautiful thing that's at the root. Let's work at the root. If we fix the root of the problem, the tree is going to grow in a different kind of way. And that's what I think this is all about. It's about recognizing that we're not disconnected. We are really a whole being, and we can use all parts of ourselves. They're not in conflict. The left brain wants us to think that we can't feel things because that's some sort of a disservice. But what all of nature seeks is balance. So this is all about integrating body, mind, spirit, the heart and the head, science and, spirit. It's about integrating and balancing everything, because in a state of balance, there's healing. When your nervous system is balanced, you have capacities that you cannot even imagine. But when you're out of balance, you sort of lose touch with the power that you already have.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I love that. I love that tree analogy. That's so,
Yeah.
so wonderful and so true. Well, could you tell us about the 4 pillars of empowered healing?
So I have just, I've been on such a long journey that's been challenging and lonely. I feel a little bit like a trailblazer. So I put together the things that have really served me most. And they really do seem to be very important standalone modalities that together, I think, give us the power to heal. The first for me really is mindfulness. And mindfulness, as John Kabat-Zinn defines it, and as I do now, is moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness. So I've always prided myself on being really, really in tune with what's going on, but I often am doing it from a state of hypervigilance because I'm in chronic survival mode. So when you're in hypervigilance, you can't access all of the mystery and magic in the world because you're too busy trying to survive. So training yourself to widen your field of awareness and allow the information that's here, rather than just picking and choosing and sorting out the things that agree with your version of reality or things that don't make you uncomfortable, is really key. So my teaching and practice of mindfulness and meditation is about learning to sit still and learn how to be comfortable with your discomfort or okay with your uncertainty. It's allowing us to just stay where we are and be kind instead of trying to move to a different place.
Wonderful.
And so then the second pillar is really the kindness piece. One of the things for me that's been critical is to stop thinking I should be another way.
Mm-hmm.
Stop thinking that since I'm so strong and so brave, I ought not be suffering. Or why am I being punished? What have I done wrong? Instead of just saying, you know what, you've had a life that has clearly touched you in ways that you have not been willing to acknowledge. It doesn't matter how it compares to any other. The things that have happened to you that have been received by your body, by your heart, define you. And so if you're in conflict with that, you're not going to be able to access the power that you have. So for me, loving kindness practice, just learning how to be present with yourself. Learning, honestly, for me, how to be vulnerable. That's certainly not a skill that I was ever taught anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the place where we really connect with each other and really start to fall in love with each other in life, when we are real, when we are whole, when we acknowledge that the suffering has the capacity to break us down, but it also has the capacity to set us free. And we can use all of our crisis as opportunity. So loving kindness is absolutely critical for me.
Yeah, I agree so much with that one. And, you know, almost everyone that I talk with in my work, my coaching work, you know, to some degree is saying horrible things to themselves, right? That voice inside their head is saying horrible things to them. So this is just so, so important for us to really work on loving ourselves. So, so important. And loving others.
You know, I heard the greatest thing. I think that Lady Gaga gets responsibility for this. She describes looking in the mirror one day and looking at herself and realizing that for all of the effort that she puts into her relationship with other people, it has never occurred to her to put the same amount of energy into her relationship with herself. Mm. And what she said that I've really carried since that time is that we are our own life partner. Like, we are the only one to depend on from birth to death. And so if we can cultivate a loving relationship with ourselves, we will really have all that we need. It doesn't mean that we don't need others, but we will have the inner sanctuary and the inner trust and self-empowerment that we need to access the other resources that we, you know, could use to help us move to whatever level we're ready to move to.
Yeah. Yes. So beautiful. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Thank you. So the third thing that is becoming more familiar, but when I began, it was a little more esoteric, is the practice of Yoga Nidra. And Yoga Nidra is described as yogic sleep, but truly how I see it is as an opportunity to recognize that we are overwhelmed with sensory information. And in the culture in which we live, we don't have license to stop. And this is where the science starts to creep in, because people are really resistant to stopping because, you know, the cultural norm is to continue moving. But the science tells us that if the nervous system continually puts out more effort than surrender, there's going to be a disconnect. something's going to break because we have to replenish the energy that we've just expended. So Yoga Nidra is really about recognizing that we suffer from diseases. Most of the diseases we suffer from are a result of overuse of the senses. Too much looking, too much hearing, too much moving, you know, and we have to have time to unplug all of those things. So the Yoga Nidra piece is about, first for me, rest. The benefits of Yoga Nidra extend across a huge continuum of possibility, from just deep rest to enlightenment. I've sort of decided I'm on the deep rest end of the spectrum. You know, I don't know which way I'm going, but if I'm rested, if my nervous system and my energy body is in alignment, then everything else that I need is going to come into play so that I can reach the higher states that I seek. So Yoga Nidra first relaxes the physical body, because again, the body speaks your mind. You're storing energy in the body, and most of the ancient traditions understand that when energy gets stuck, there's pain. There's sometimes literal pain, or there's discomfort or dis-ease. So we spend a long time making sure the energy is freed in the body. And then in this sort of in-between alpha state, we have access to the subconscious mind. We have access to the collective unconscious. And so we're clearing out karmic stores. We're clearing out the clutter of the daily life. You know, we don't come home and rest in the same restorative way that we used to, because we're busy-minded all night, even when we're sleeping. So we're not ever recovering. Yoga Nidra really lets us clean house, so that we theoretically start after the practice with a clean slate, a balanced nervous system, and enough space, again, to receive the mystery and magic of the moment, and, you know, to have some time out of survival mode.
Beautiful. Yes. And I have been listening to your Yoga Nidras, and I have found them so helpful, really and truly, just very profound. And I feel completely different afterwards. So yeah, thank you for that. They're really wonderful.
It's a pleasure. And I do have to say that I put my own Yoga Nidra on every single night when I sleep. Mm-hmm. I know that I hear myself say nothing more than welcome to Yoga Nidra sometimes. But what happens is that in the morning, no matter what my night was like, I am much more restored than I would have been had I not listened to it. Mm-hmm. So again, you can use it therapeutically for sleep. You can use it for higher cognitive or higher consciousness work, but it all is going to occur in its own organic way. You don't have to do anything about that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And so the final, and for me, the most exciting at the moment, pillar is the discovery of Eden energy medicine. So, you know, I believe that all of this is energetic work. And yet, understanding what I understand with my mind was not helping me address the stress and trauma in my body. So I, 20 years ago, found a Donna Eden book and really resonated with some of the stuff that she said, but I was too busy and tired to pay attention to it much. So when I recovered, I got an email from the Eden Energy group about 2 years ago. And I'm like, you know, I think that mattered to me at one point. Let me experiment with it. And I started doing this very simple exercise program called the Daily Energy Routine. And for the very first time in at least 20 years, I have lost the chronic neck and shoulder pain that I've had. I mean, it really, in 10 minutes a day. It was so powerful and so profound that I have just completed the first year of the foundation's training to become an energy medicine practitioner, because it really integrates all of this stuff that we've just talked about in the most powerful way. And the most important part of it is that the power is in the palms of your own hands. Mm-hmm. We have, you know, we're energetic beings. We have electromagnetic energy that we can move with our hands. And so we have the power to heal ourselves in ways that we just haven't noticed, we haven't cultivated, or we've never known. So that's really an exciting addition that I think sort of ties all this stuff up into a beautiful package of self-empowerment and trust.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love those 4 pillars that you shared, really so helpful. So could you tell us, how does understanding the science of stress and trauma integrate with spiritual work?
So that's one that I work with a lot. Again, I struggle with not getting lost in the head trip of the science. Because when I do that, then I don't do the spiritual practices that I know are way more sustaining to me. On the other hand, what I also know is that if I understand a little bit about the science of the nervous system, it may well be the very thing that I need to help me sit down to do the practices. So when I teach my stress physiology, the most important thing that I share with folks is that, again, the nervous system requires balance. You know, there are some studies that have been done that said that our caveman ancestors and us, we have the same nervous system. We really haven't evolved the nervous system very much in our collective lifetime. And yet the way that we live has changed dramatically. So it's been estimated that our caveman ancestors may have activated their stress response as much in their lifetimes as we activate ours in a single day.
Wow.
It's really about situations that require your present moment action to save your life. That's what the autonomic nervous system is for. That's what the survival system is for. We have, because of our way of living, decided that losing our keys or being late or not getting the ice cream flavor that we want is a source of threat. And your brain can't distinguish between a real and an imagined threat. So if you believe it to be true, it becomes true for you. Yeah. The body speaks your mind. The way that the nervous system is arranged is that the energy and information of change registers first in the most primitive part of the nervous system. That's the part that's under your cognitive radar. And so we are wired for survival, not for happiness. It takes an enormous amount of presence, an enormous amount of present moment awareness to use this much higher, much more developed intellectual part of our brain to say, wait a minute, that is not a threat. Mm-hmm. But since most of us don't live in the moment, we're living in the past and the future, we miss the opportunity to short circuit those unnecessary stress responses. So here's the problem. When you turn on the stress response, whether you know it or not, your body in its innate wisdom diverts resources away from anything that's not literally going to change position so that you move out of the way of an oncoming truck. The things that are deprived are your digestion, your hormonal system, and your immune system. That's all good news when you're really in a crisis situation. But what happens for us is that we live in this chronic state of hypervigilance, this chronic state of everything's an emergency. And when we do that, then all of those essential functions remain offline. So it's estimated that 60 to 80% of primary care visits are because of stress-related or lifestyle issues. Wow. If you think about the things that go offline, think of what we treat. All kinds of cardiovascular disease, because when you're in hypervigilant mode, when you're in survival mode, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up. All of the gastrointestinal diseases that we treat, the hormonal dysfunction that we treat, and all of the immune system diseases, including cancer. But for me, the mystery illnesses really fall into this category. The things that nobody quite knows what to do with or how to fix, the chronic Lyme and the chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, the stuff that when I was in training was said to be all in your mind. At least there's a little bit more of awareness about it now, but we still don't really know how to fix it. So understanding that that is the case, I think allows us to say, oh my gosh, I know my nervous system is out of balance. Maybe I will sit down. Maybe I will try some of these more spiritually inclined things that don't make sense to my cognitive mind to see if I feel better. And I think what happens when you're willing to do that is that you immediately tap into a place that you've probably been disconnected from for a long time. And you remember who you are. And you remember that you have the capacity to be present. You have the capacity to be with your situations and make responses. You respond skillfully to the things that happen rather than always being on automatic pilot and reacting.
Wow, this is so powerful. And, you know, so one thought, I'm having so many thoughts right now of things I want to ask you, but one is that, you know, this just really brings home something we all know, but just the importance of a meditative practice or a mindfulness practice or a yoga nidra practice or, you know, something just to give our entire systems a break from being in that crisis mode and that survival mode all the time. But also, and I know this is something that you say all the time, but that we are, although we are kind of trained and the way our culture runs, we're living in this survival mode. It's putting our systems on, on overdrive, but we have a choice. We get to choose to activate what, the natural way that our body's supposed to be operating, the natural healing powers that we have. Yeah.
Again, you have to be present to win.
Yeah.
If you're not in the moment, you're not going to have that opportunity. So it's because if you really need to stay, if you're really more inspired by the science of it, then fine. If I'm in survival mode, I don't have the power that I have when I'm present.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of moves us to a different place that we otherwise might resist because it sounds too out there. Yeah. But it really literally is bringing yourself back into a state of balance so that you can respond to your life more skillfully. Yeah. The other piece that's really important to me is that all of the science, all of the studies that everybody gets so excited about and the functional MRIs that show which part of the brains light up, it's all very provocative. But that is studying the nervous system and the brain. It's not studying the mind. And you see, the mind is something that in neuroscience, I don't think there's much of a discussion about because we don't talk about things that we can't understand. And so Dan Siegel is a favorite neuroscientific researcher of mine that I love to read and listen to. And he says that the mind is an embodied relational process that integrates the flow of energy and information. So the brain is in the realm of Newtonian physics, but the mind is in the realm of quantum physics. So right now, even across video, you and I are integrating and merging our energy bodies. And, this is potentially the reason why next week, when I just go, I wonder what Jocelyn's doing, I'll get an email from you. It's not, it is a synchronicity, but it really is because we have merged our energies and we We are connected. There's no way to deny the connectedness. And so for me, that is so exciting, that the science accidentally brings us into the realm of mystery and magic.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, could you tell us a little bit more about Yoga Nidra and loving kindness? So
let me start with loving kindness, because that's been a big bugaboo for me. My life and my training, it has always felt very self-indulgent to take care of yourself. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand how to skillfully take care of myself without just eating bonbons and sitting in a tub. It's so much bigger than that. Yeah. So in my quest to understand this, and this is a very recent occurrence, I had read about Clarissa Pinkola Estes' Descano ceremony, the scar ceremony that she speaks of. So I thought, maybe I've made a mistake, because I know about some major events that have happened in my life that I sort of put up as the things that are sort of my issues. But what if I'm missing something? So I sat down one day and I started just writing down, free hand and free mind, stream of consciousness, all of the things that had made an impact in my life that were potentially traumatic or at least memorable in a challenging way. And I stopped when I got to 4 pages. Wow. And it was only after I saw that, and honestly, this is not for the faint of heart. It was a very big experience for me. But once I saw what my life really had been, it immediately flipped my switch. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a miracle that you can even speak. It's a miracle that you can do anything. And that allows me to do just what I accidentally did, bless my own heart.
Wow, yeah.
And just say, you are amazing to be able to do what you can do. It's a miracle that you survived some of the things that you did. And that allows your heart to crack open and to use the stresses and traumas and crises of life to open to a greater sense of wholeness and love. So I call yoga loving kindness meditation in my classes, yoga for the heart. You know, it's hard for us. The doors are stuck and we just slowly start to practice like a little bit more, until finally you start to open really in a bigger way that is important for all of us. I don't believe that I can really relate to you completely and lovingly if I don't relate to me. You're going to show me all this stuff in the world that I can't accept, and I'm going to blame you if I don't have these spiritual tools in place. So it's my responsibility as a conscious member of, you know, the world, or as I learned in my yoga teacher training, that we're all giant cells, or we're all cells in a giant living organism. It gives you a different sense of your responsibility to do your own healing work. When you do that, you're contributing to the whole. And so this is the way that we really heal each other. It's not Hallmark Cardi. It's really about understanding the power of your own vulnerability to move into a place of, you know, a softer heart and greater kindness for yourself and all.
I really love that idea that you just shared, which that I wasn't aware of that practice from Dr. Estes. And I can see that it's not for the faint of heart, but to use your traumas and your difficult life experiences as a way to enter into loving kindness. That's really very, very profound, you know. And if you think about, like, how would you, if there was another person who had been through all of that, what would you do for them? You know, you'd
Exactly.
give them a big hug and you would love them so much, you know, and tell them it's going to be okay and you're amazing and you're so strong, right? So if we can just do that for ourselves, it's so powerful.
And one of the most important pieces of healing any kind of trauma is to have an empathic witness. I always thought it had to be somebody else. It didn't occur to me that I had to embrace my own stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I can be my own witness. It doesn't mean I don't need others, but if I can't hold it, I can't expect for somebody else to. So again, this is hard work. It's deep work, but it's about being to yourself what you wish you would have had. You know, instead of feeling the loss, then you bring it. If it's missing, you bring it to yourself.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yes. So I'll allow you to continue with the yoga.
And so all of it is also, you know, interconnected. But Yoga Nidra then really recognizes that we do have stuff, and we've got stuff that's locked away. And for all of our best intention to try to dig it out cognitively, there's some part that really remains unspoken and unreachable. So to move some of these really deeply stuck experiences and memories, it requires an enormous amount of relaxation. And those kinds of things really don't go together. If I'm holding on tightly to some kind of trauma or something I can't understand or hasn't been processed, then relaxation really does not come into my awareness. Mm-hmm. So this is a deliberate practice to invoke a very deep state of physical relaxation, to allow the body to release to the extent that all of the 72,000 nadis that exist in the energy body of yoga and Ayurveda to start to open, to let energy flow. You move into such a relaxed state that you have access to the subconscious mind. So let me back up and say that, you know, the most important part of Yoga Nidra is to recognize that we have the sensory overload. And we're really in the beginning of the practice, before we relax the body, deliberately choosing to turn off or unplug all of the other sensory information. So your eyes are closed for the whole time. You're lying on your back on the ground. The only sound that you intend to hear is the sound of my voice guiding you through. Everything else sort of moves into the background. So we're suspended by this thread connecting us to the awake world by my voice. I imagine hovering over your subconscious basement. But since you're so relaxed, you can look in there and see all the piles of things that you have never processed, or the things that you tucked in the corner for later. And as you just bring your heart to this and look into this place, if there's something that's taking an inordinate amount of energy to keep suppressed, it moves spontaneously. So the other piece is that, you know, this is not just our stuff in the subconscious mind. This is stuff that we brought from other lifetimes, if you're so inclined to believe that, as I am. This is stuff that gets put into our subconscious mind just because of the life that we live, like energetically, other people's stuff is coming in, the emotions and experiences of the world are coming in. So that stuff doesn't belong. Again, we can't access the mystery and magic of the world if our cup is overflowing. So we empty out the basement, we make space. And then in that place, we start to deliberately plant seeds. So we're planting our own subconscious garden and saying, listen, this is who I really am. And you say it, you create an intention in the present moment and in the first person, and this is who I am, and I am like this. And that becomes the stuff that you're growing and storing in the subconscious mind, so that then in an awake state, these kinds of intentions are coming forth. There's a period of guided imagery that is really about sort of stirring up your subconscious mind. I always just imagine in the subconscious, there are all of these marble-sized piles of things that have been compressed, you know, and they're just sitting there sort of waiting for something to happen. And so the guided imagery is like throwing little image darts. You know, we store all of our subconscious memory in symbolic form. It's not linear, so you never know which thing might pop open a memory. So you just start to throw random image darts and maybe something will move. I have a lot of folks that when something does seem to move, describe something like a momentary sense of fearfulness, or a dark cloud that moves very quickly through, or a sense of coldness that moves. And inevitably those people after the Yoga Nidra say that something has shifted in their lives. So it's like the essential antidote for the busyness of our life. And I think it's a really critical addition to any kind of psychotherapeutic work that we might do. Mm. You know, after I stir up the subconscious mind, I do a little bit of a guided journey. It's a combination of, I usually use chakra and element-based guidance, more sort of like a shamanic journey, but it really does, just by a turn of phrase and a color, because you're drifting in and out of awareness. It's sort of surprising what you hear and how you hear it and what gets stirred as a result of that. Mm. So the final good news about Yoga Nidra is it has the physiologic effect of 2 to 8 hours of restful, restorative sleep. It brings your nervous system back into alignment and you wake up really balanced. Most people, including me when I first did it, for them, it's the first time you've ever really experienced being relaxed in your life.
Wow. Wow, that is so powerful.
It's pretty amazing.
It is, yes. And we all really need 2 to 8 hours of restful sleep. You know, I'm sure every single person listening, myself definitely included.
And restful, you know, I mean, even though you're in bed for 8 hours, I would submit that it's probably not restoring you in the way that something like this would.
Yeah. Yes. And the whole process is really amazing. I've been listening to, as I said, to your Yoga Nidras, but I hadn't heard it kind of dissected in that way, as you just did, as clearing out the basement and planting the seeds, and then that, you know, hitting old things that we've hidden from ourselves, right, and giving them a chance to clear and heal.
And the exciting part is that you don't have to know what they are. Mm-hmm. You know, if they're taking up energy, if they're taking up space, and they're no longer needed, your body in its innate wisdom, your mind, your consciousness knows this is junk, and this is a lesson that is important, even though it was hard, and it needs to be integrated into my conscious awareness. Yeah. And that all happens without your help, because bless our hearts, we try to help, and sometimes we just get in the way.
We make it more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that beautiful description. Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing practice.
It is. It is. So one last thing that I would love to ask you to speak a little more about is Aaden energy medicine. And this is something that I discovered maybe 3 years ago, and I am such a believer in it, the daily energy routine. It's just amazing. And I find it, you know, I feel it really on a very physical level. You know, I can just feel that my body is in, you know, better shape after I do that 10-minute routine. But I know that you say it's also an important tool for self-empowerment and healing. So could you tell us a little more about that?
Yes. So as I said, my first experience with Aaden energy medicine was very long ago. And the thing that drew me to it was that I had, even in my surgery practice, when I was still working, this sense that I couldn't explain of not being connected, like literally in my body.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt from the inside that my left and right sides weren't connected, that my head and my body weren't connected, that my heart and my mind were not connected. And when I first started to explore alternative ways of healing, I remember telling acupuncturist after acupuncturist, no, there's something disconnected here. And they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. So when I first looked into Donna Eden's work, I think I opened the book to the page that spoke of what she calls a homolateral condition. So again, this is the science coming back. You know, your body naturally has a crossover pattern. The right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. The left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. We have this natural crossover all the way down to the spiraling of the DNA and the double helix. When we're healthy, we're crossing over. There are all kinds of crossover patterns in the body. When we are traumatized, though, or very ill, your body in its innate wisdom shuts that down. It literally wants to take your energy away so that you can't keep doing what you're doing, so that all of your resources can be directed toward healing.
To protect us.
To protect us, to heal us. So no more expenditure outward. We're drawing all of our energy in because we need it to heal. So we're meant to take this as a gift and heal, and then we're meant to come back out and let ourselves start crossing over again. Because though of the way that we live, a lot of times what happens is we get stuck in homolateral mode. So it's like you're trudging through molasses. It's like, I'm so tired. I can't do what I need to do. I don't know what's wrong. And whenever I check myself for a homolateral condition, when I feel like that, I'm not crossing. And I keep doing this because it's just habitual. This is the way you can actually start to reestablish a crossover pattern, just figure eights, just drawing figure eights all over the place. Yeah. Because your body knows what that is, and your hands are magnets, and so you're inviting energy to cross from one side to the other. So that was really powerful for me. The other piece, because of my interest in trauma and chronic stress and survival mode, is that Donna Eden's work sees the triple warmer meridian as an energy system so powerful that she considers it in its own right. Now, triple warmer or triple burner is the equivalent of the autonomic nervous system. It is the thing that's responsible for survival mode. And it is the thing that is able to rob or conscript energy from every other meridian that we have and every other energy system. So learning to work with triple warmer means that we're more skillfully distributing the energy throughout all of the other energy systems because it's not so stuck in survival mode. The exciting thing about this is you can do the craziest little exercises, which take seconds, and feel a shift. Like, if I may, triple warmer, one of the ways to settle triple warmer is just to make a big okay sign. You put your thumbs in your temples and your middle fingers right above the pupils in your forehead. So these points, curiously enough, are called oh my God points. So another interesting thing, it sounds like we're learning energy medicine, but isn't this just what you do when you've had enough?
Right.
We already know this stuff. So this is the triple warmer point. We're putting our fingers on the oh my God points. And if you just close your eyes and take a couple of breaths, sometimes you'll yawn, sometimes you'll feel a deeper breath, but there's an immediate shift out of survival mode into a place of greater ease.
Yes, I can really feel that. That's amazing. I haven't tried this one before.
See, there's a breath, and then you just shake that energy off, and you have just spoken in the language of your body to your body. I see you, I feel you, I can help you, and now we can go ahead. This is like integration and communication. We're controlling our nervous system, which in medical school I learned was not possible. The autonomic nervous system is said to be involuntary, and yet look what we just did. We just changed it. And the way that you test for this is using energy testing. It's not muscle testing, it's energy testing. And just that long, you can change from being weak to being strong. It'll shift your energy body in an instant.
Yeah.
And so working with the triple warmer system has been really, really powerful for me. And teaching people how to do this themselves, you see. is really important to me. We've gotten accustomed, because of our Western medical model, to like give ourselves up to the experts and say, I'm broken, you fix me. And ideally with just one pill and one visit. You know, these practices do need to have your continual attention. To change the neural circuitry in your mind requires your present moment kind attention. So, you know, if we can start to understand that we have the power to shift some of these things that might ordinarily take us to the emergency room, you know, the empowerment itself, the sense of trust, settles your autonomic nervous system, settles down triple warmer, allows it to become what's called a radiant circuit, which invokes joy, which I've been seeking for my whole life. You can't get there. You can't connect. You can't feel joyful when you're in survival mode. So we're shifting that dynamic, and from that place, greater healing can occur. You know, optimum learning, optimum healing occurs in a relaxed and open state. How much time do we spend in a relaxed and open state? You know, that's why all of these practices together are training us to create the foundation that we need to allow us to evolve. And one quick other thing, the other premise of Donna Aaden's work is that we have the power to evolve our nervous system. Remember I said the caveman and our nervous systems are very similar, and yet the world has changed dramatically. We can evolve our nervous system because we're in our bodies. We recognize when we're triggered. We have power to shift the reactivity into a more skillful response. And by virtue of that, we change our relationship with the world in which we live. So we live with more ease.
That's so wonderful. And yeah, I think all of this is so important for all of us to know, that we have this power, right? We get to choose, we get to change these patterns. And it's in very simple ways, you know, that you're presenting. It's very simple, and it needs the dedication and the practice, but it's so straightforward and it just makes sense.
I've decided, you know, discipline can be a little bit of a tricky word. So I've decided to use the word devotion. You're devoting yourself to your own self-healing.
Yes.
It sounds kinder. It feels kinder. It doesn't have sort of the strict warriorship to it, you know, that triple warmer loves. It's softer. It's more like, no, I'm healing myself because I can. And yet it does require your attention. You know, if you're trying to train a puppy, you cannot do it just on Saturdays when you're home. The same thing for your nervous system. If you really want to shift out of these chronically stressed, tense patterns, it's going to require your kind, relaxed, present moment attention. Oh, there I am again. Let me just come back. Oh, let's get in a little, my shoulders are tight. Let me just take a few breaths. It's moment to moment adjustments that allows us to move into a place of greater ease.
So how do you bring all of these things together? You've shared so much wonderful information here, but how do you bring it all together?
Well, I mean, I think it's all energy and it's all medicine, you know? And so just in the course of a day, learning to pay attention to how you are, like getting up in the morning and recognizing that maybe you have a short fuse today can change the way that you choose to spend the rest of your day. You know, so you gather information, whatever you find, you use the practices of loving kindness to say, it's okay. I'm glad I know this, because now I won't call the credit card company and ask about that extra charge because I'll be grouchy today. And then recognize that if I wake up already frazzled, maybe I need to dedicate some time to laying down and getting my nervous system balanced in a yoga nidra practice. And in the meanwhile, when I have time at work, maybe I'll just go, okay, you know what? I'm really stressed. I need to just settle in and let triple warmer, you know, rest for a minute so that I can reclaim my centered and balanced and awake state and move more skillfully through my day, which will benefit everybody around me, not just me. Yes. So it's really recognizing that, you know, the mystery and magic and the synchronicities of the world are not available to us when we're filled to the brim with junk. Now, on the other hand, I've also heard it said that true service comes from overflow, but overflow of this abundance. You know, I've worked with the abundant issue. You can't get to the abundance when you're filled to the brim with scarcity. You know, there has to be some kind of house cleaning and clearing. And then without doing anything else, you have simply made a container that is available to receive. And so I hope that puts it all together, but that's really, I just think all of these things are so deeply interconnected and just, you know, so powerfully transformative in a way, I mean, it really in a way that I've never imagined before.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that you've shared here. This has been really, really wonderful talking with you today. And I know that you have some free gifts that you wanted to share with the event audience. Would you like to tell a little bit more about those?
Sure. Well, because as I guess you've gotten the sense, I think that rest is so incredibly important. I'm offering 2 different Yoga Nidra practices as my free gifts. One is a guided imagery practice that journeys to a rainbow. And the other one is something I've been working with lately, where we do the entire preliminary Yoga Nidra, that the physical relaxation piece. But instead of the guided imagery, I have a friend who plays Himalayan bowls. So it's a sound massage in the middle of the Yoga Nidra, which is incredibly profound. So you're open and awake and neurologically balanced, present with a clear, you know, subconscious. And now these beautiful sounds are being offered to you for healing.
Beautiful.
So those 2 things are really awesome and exciting. And they do take an hour of your time. But I would like to remind you that an hour out for the benefit is really, really worth it. The other thing that I've mentioned is the loving kindness being so important. So I'm sharing a loving kindness meditation that I've created, really just with the intention of you know, learning how to embrace my own situation and learning to use that as a way to be more skillfully present in the world. I think that we can all agree that if we're fighting all the time, no good things are going to happen. And so if we can learn to hold our own shadow and be curious about the shadows of others, we might be more kind to one another. It's sort of my opinion that that we are all wounded. And I don't mean for that to sound like a profile, but it seems safer to assume that somebody's misbehaving or acting in a negative way because of their own pain rather than because of being malicious. And if I can see them like that, that comes from the perspective of loving kindness for me. So I hope that both of those, all 3 of those gifts will be of use to all of those who are interested.
Yes, so wonderful. Thank you for offering those. And for everyone who's listening, if you just scroll down a little bit below this video, you'll see the link to click on to claim those gifts from Gina. Well, thank you again, Gina. It's been so wonderful. And I'm just so happy to have you here as a part of Embracing Radical Change.
Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure to spend time with you, Jocelyn. I just hope that anybody who feels alone or is trying to figure out where to go on their healing journey, I hope that they'll find some hope in these few things that I've shared, because I think that they really have the potential to make a difference for all of us. So thank you again from my heart.
Thank you.